Happy Friday. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. Guess what? There's been trouble, but it looks like you're all here now and it looks like we're okay. So, happy Friday, everybody. It is great to see you. Oh, first I'm going to greet you and then I'm going to say, I wish I had wine instead of water. That was a tough half hour. Let's see who's here so I can greet everybody and then we will catch up and we will start our gallery night tonight. Another beautiful episode of gallery night. I don't have a ton, so we'll see how long we're together tonight. It's probably a good amount. We'll see how it goes. It's always hard to tell, isn't it? Sprinkled in with a little bit of trivia and all that. Kirsten, great to see you. Happy Friday. You are on the porch with the ravioli for dinner. Oh, I hope you can stay for a while. I'm trying to figure out where to look. I just gotta say this now and get it off my chest. I worked on gallery night like all afternoon, right? And then I took a long break because it's the kids' last day of their vacation week, and we were out at a pond and getting ice cream and had a nice break running around outside. I spent the entire working day putting these photos together, and then I let my computer hibernate. Here it comes. That was foreshadowing. And in the meantime, I got an update. So let me just make sure my volume is on. Looks like my volume's on. And it erased everything that I had done, like for not just yesterday or the day before, but until a while back in the specific program. So I just noticed it about 20 to 30 minutes ago, and I have been frantically reinserting every photo, hopefully in the right order. And I didn't have time to label them the way I had them perfectly the first time. So super frantic. So fingers crossed that I've got everything exactly right according to the cues that I write myself, because that was super stressy. But here we are. Happy Friday. It's going to be fine, isn't it? We're together. It's going to be fine. We've got some beautiful things to look at. We're never at a loss for things to talk about. Ravioli sounds fantastic. It really does. Sitting on the porch sounds great. I'm at home because I got in a traffic jam coming home as well. We were at my mom's for a couple of nights, and I didn't have time to get to the studio. So there's been a lot and a lot. Let's wind down together. Let's bring it right down together. I'll tell you what, coming off of vacation week is always going to be a thing. I don't know if you have kids at home or grandkids. It's a lot. It's a lot. When you're a mom in your 50s, it's a lot. Ryan, great to see you. Happy Friday from North Texas. Gin daisies and making jewelry outside in the evening. Spring sunshine. Can't wait to see everyone's awesome work. Oh, I agree. It's all such, and yours included. It is such good work. It always is. It always is. But I think especially tonight, I always say that. Everything that I look at 5 minutes ago was like, oh, it's the best, isn't it? It really is. It always feels like that. And it always is, I think. Bonnie, great to see you. Hello in Palm Coast, Florida. This is date night with you and your hubby, Doug. Oh, how fun! How fun! Hopefully, you find some good conversation to dig into, and it's an interesting episode. I think so. I hope so. Happy date night. Happy Friday. Robin, cheers in Wisconsin. Cheers, my dears. It's only pathetic water, but let's pretend it's straight vodka. Totally. Teddy, can you get me some vodka? Just kidding. He can't hear anything. Yeah, I don't think I have straight vodka anyway. I do have wine. Mm. Linda B, great to see you. Good evening, everybody. Happy weekend eve. It was a beautiful day. Was it a beautiful day for you too? It was such a beautiful, how beautiful was it? It was such a beautiful day that we were down in East Hampton visiting a friend and one of Teddy and Joss's friends and hanging around outside. And we went to get ice cream, and there's a lake right there. And it had like this film of horrible green algae, like smelly, you know. And I love a good swim in a lake anytime, anywhere, anytime, but not today, right? Because it's not that warm. And I had a skirt on, and I took my sandals off. Joss had to go to the bathroom, so not to be disgusting, but we thought, well, maybe this is a good opportunity because there was absolutely nowhere else to go. And of course, her being a child, she never plans forward. So it was like right now, right now, right now. So I was walking down into the lake with her, and I stepped down. I haven't been in this lake before. I stepped down into the green to see how deep it was. I was expecting like my ankle at the highest. I went right down mid-thigh, right down. And then she, feeling excited like we were close to our goal of getting in the water and hiding so she could do her thing, she latched onto me and she took me down into the water, and I was just covered with green and gross and clammy and super stinky. Like I activated like a portal to hell. Like the smell just came. Ooh, but it was so funny. It was one of those great weather days where it was like, okay. I mean, I haven't had a chance to. I changed my top, but I'm just cold and clammed out. But it's just one of those days that you can't be mad about anything because it was such a beautiful day, and it was like a little glimpse of the next few months. I hope, right? Because that was absolutely stellar for us in New England summer weather today. Couldn't have asked for better. Oh, Andrea, cheers, my dears. Great to see you drinking cold brew coffee, liqueur, gin while drawing. Oh, perfect, perfect. Is John there with you? Are you having a nice quiet night over there? Have you been binge shopping again and getting yourself into trouble at home? Oh man, I know that story. April, great to see you. Happy Friday from Illinois. Happy Friday. Happy cocktail night. Mom, happy cocktail night. Gallery night in sunny Granby. It was beautiful there for the last couple of days. What a lot of fun. It was fun taking off and going to Granby to see Gami and do something different with the kids. Get a change of scenery. Oh, fun. April, it's a rum and coke kind of night. Yeah, it sure is. Sure is. That is a summer drink and a half, isn't it? Linda H., cheers in Massachusetts. Great to see you. Cats Gallery, cheers in Southern California. Great to see you. Ryan says our flower seeds are starting to sprout. Oh, that is exciting. That is exciting. I know I say this all the time, but I'm so. When is there going to be time to do anything? I always feel so behind with it, everything. I'm so eager and keen to learn about plants and planting. And I wrote a little bit for the book today, the design like book I was writing. I'll give a small spoiler alert because there's more than 30 chapters. But one of the chapters is designing like Helen Albee. If you remember those coffee time episodes, Helen Albee had kind of a mission situation going, like a rug hooking industry in the 1900s in New Hampshire. And remember her goal, she was a bit of a persnickety person, but her goal was she was like a summer resident, and I forget the name of Tamworth. I think the name of the town was Tamworth. She was a summer resident, and she decided to stay year round, and she noticed that the economy was quite bad, and that if women could do something, could learn a skill that was saleable, that maybe it could be a turnaround for everybody in the town. And she's not the first, but she's one of the first to come up with this idea, and she literally wrote the book on it, all the sort of tips and tricks about putting the business part of it together. But she had a very sort of very narrow and very fixed idea of design. And she felt that coming out of that Victorian period, right, still officially in the Victorian period, she felt that heavily decorated things were ugly and gauche. And she really liked Native American aesthetic, like not a specific one. It seems like she took kind of a cross section of motifs from a lot of different Native people and kind of put them together into her designs. We don't have a lot of examples of them, so it's hard to know. But I was working on that chapter, and it took me down the rabbit hole of natural dye because I have another great book from like 1940 something, maybe it's 1950. A Navajo woman writing with a woman who was compiling all this information about all these beautiful plants, more in the Southwest, but talking about the preparation for dyeing, and specifically for, this is a pamphlet, but it was maybe 30-40 pages long, specifically for dyeing yarn for rug making, because of course the Navajo wove. Remember those episodes we did on Coffee Time too? They did a lot of rug weaving with yarn. So as soon as the Spaniards introduced sheep to North America, and the Pueblo were the first ones. I'm going to stop. Right, this is a total detour. The Pueblo were the first ones to sort of use and domesticate the sheep, and produce yarn from the sheep. But the Navajo are really the ones that took it to the next level, because instead of just keeping it white, gray, brown, and black, they just started dyeing it with all of these beautiful desert hues, like pinks and deep yellows and browns, tans, khakis, that kind of thing, from the plants that were local. But man, the account, I don't have all of this in the book because it's just a sidebar to go along with the Helen Albee conversation. But the amount of preparation, and I certainly don't do as much natural dyeing as a lot of you do, because of time, because of predictability of, of the color, being able to kit something and have it be exactly the right color more than once. Incredible amount of work they were putting into it then. And I've only taken like a couple of classes at this point in natural dyes, and I've done very limited natural dyeing myself with what I have in the yard. But man, the amount of soaking in advance and overnight and for long spells, and some colors would take like a full month to sort of realize, and just a lot of work, a heavy timeline getting all the supplies together. It was such an interesting little book to read. I went right down the rabbit hole. What a lot of fun. But it made me think again, I do want to have a dye garden. And I just wonder, and I wonder if any of you know the answer to this question. I wonder if that part of it is the same. And I mean, this is like, there probably is not a blanket answer to this question. But I mean, for those of you who do natural dyeing, are you finding that in 2023, you are still needing like one color, preparing the plant or whatever the source is, and having the finished product could take up to a month? Are you finding that now, or is that like a old-timey thing? I'm just curious because it is an older pamphlet. Oh dear, Ryan Richards, Eternal Gallery Night. Yes, it is eternal. I think that's a perfect way to put it. We've done like 3 retakes because we kept having more in. This is going to be the night we finish this batch. The wheel is going to turn over tonight. And then we'll start collecting again for next month. And we might have the Eternal Gallery month again next month. That is funny. I poached one of yours, Ryan Richards. I poached one of yours just because we had to have something of yours in the show. And I'm not sure how you're feeling about zebras at this moment. Carol P. Cheers, my dears. Enjoying Wisconsin cranberry rhubarb wine. That makes me crazy. Oh, that sounds amazing. Feels almost healthy. Well, it sounds very healthy. I'm going to validate you and enable you and say you should have lots of it. It sounds like there's a lot of vitamin in that rhubarb wine. That sounds amazing. I love cranberry and rhubarb. Priscilla, great to see you. Cheers, my dears in Ohio. So glad you're there. Happy Friday night. Juliet, looking forward to the show. Just back from Mexican dinner and drinks. Brrr. I so love Mexican food. It's so good. I was spinning. I'm there. Pub. Now, need more cream with shiny bamboo yard for the. Okay, I have a bunch of your pictures to show tonight, and they're way at the beginning because that was like right at the end of what we clipped on our last gallery night. Shannon, great to see you. Happy Friday from Delaware. Great to see you. Lisa, cheers, my dears. All ready for gallery night. So good. Spinning yarn in the pub. Legendary. I like that. Brenda, great to see you. What a beautiful piece you sent in. Absolutely love it. Working on your Vogue lady. No rush. Faces are not your thing. Do it as anonymous as you want. You know that I am not precious about anything. So make it the way that you like it. And it is absolutely not a rush. So don't even think about it in terms of am I done yet? And if you need to put it aside for a month, do it. Honestly, it's fine. Always a conversation starter. Oh, really? Actually, in the pub, that is fun. And that's a great thing to do in front of other people. I bet people are really curious and interested. How funny. Melissa, great to see you. This is a great treat on a Friday evening. Oh, I'm so glad I was able to come on after all of that glitching. Oh my gosh. Diana, great to see you. Good morning in sunny Brisbane, Australia. Kaz, happy gallery night. Happy Friday night. I hope things are great with you. Gayla, hello. Good to see you. Happy Friday. April, happy Friday. Goretta, you sent a beautiful piece too. Great to have you there. Dave, happy Friday. Green Thai curry, one of my favorites. That's always what I get in Thai restaurants, and hard seltzer. Cheers, my dears. Now I really wish I had some strawberry rhubarb wine. Karen, great to see you. Happy Friday, everyone, from Rockledge, Florida. Sitting on the back porch. That sounds really super charming. That sounds so summery. Oh, how perfect. A lot of you are outside tonight. Good for you. Get out there and dig in, right? Lean right into the season. And Judy, ice lime shortbread. Oh my God, ice lime shortbread cookies to combat a chilly, wet day there. So you're getting a little bit of a different weather situation there. Summer is on its way. I am sure. I am sure. Next stop, Judy Phillips. I am absolutely sure. April, Judy, that sounds great. Wendy, oh, you sent some beautiful stuff too, Wendy. Just back from a walk in the woods. Too warm here near Pittsburgh. Oh, wow. Already, right? Oh, my gosh. Lori, beautiful day here in North Carolina. So good to see you too. Happy Friday. Ryan says, my sibling is a horticulturalist, so they make plants upkeep a little easier to manage, I bet. First time planting flowers on my own, though. Also, a tomato plant and peppers growing. Oh, how fun is that? You're getting a lot of help. It's great to have a horticulturalist in the family, right? Because that really, Google is great, but somebody to ask a question of is even better, isn't it? Picked my first rhubarb today. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling so festive. So summer festive. You can still say festive in summer, right? Festive means you're appreciating the season, doesn't it? Or does it specifically mean that, like the holidays, the winter holidays? Oh, I'm just catching up with you all. Paula, good to see you in sunny California with a refreshing vodka tonic and a slice of lime. Oh, that does sound fresh. That sounds sophisticated. I like that. I'm just catching up. I'm reading your thread to each other, so I kind of know what's going on. Cass says, I'm taking natural dye class online right now. It's so fun, but there's nothing growing in my neighborhood. Yeah. So what'll you do, Kaz? Will you go online to like Etsy or something and order some of the powders and things like that? Are you gonna? Because I have a lot of powders from a lot of different companies on Etsy and other and in person, right, in stores and stuff. Um, yeah, I want to revisit this topic because I'm wondering what everybody else uses. If you don't have plants that give you the color that you want in your immediate locality, what do you do? What are you ordering to make it work? I am curious. April Kaz, I would love to take one of those. I'm attempting to grow some Japanese indigo. Have you tried that plant? I'm going to be waiting for that answer to come in. Okay, let's see. Ryan says a small natural dye garden is my goal for spring summer 2024. Me too. It is for me too. Absolutely. I want to do natural dye garden too. Oh, you are also interested in this. This is great. Depends on what you're using. Paula says depends on what you're using, such as the wool, the plant material, how saturated you want the wool. Interesting, because I'm assuming that with natural dye, that the longer that the wool or yarn is in the dye bath, the stronger the color is. I'm a see. I don't know because it doesn't necessarily work like that with aniline dye, does it? Once you put your material into the dye bath, it strikes, meaning it hits the color, right? It attaches to whatever your fiber is, and then when the water runs clear, that means it has exhausted, and you are done. So it's not like with aniline dyes, there would really be a situation, with the exception of a few blues and fuchsias, that the color will never exhaust, right? It will never turn clear. But most colors do, and pretty quickly as well, especially when you're putting in citric acid or an aid like that. So that's interesting because I remember when I did the black walnuts last year or the year before, the water was dark forever. And I left the yarn in the water for a long time, and it was like that. It didn't exhaust. It never exhausted. I figured this is as good as it gets. I'm going to take it out, and it was a lovely color, so I was very happy to have it. I was very happy to use it. Um, I felt like it lost a lot of color when I rinsed it out, and I thought, how is this even possible? It's been in there for so long. But I guess different sources give different effects, right, and have a different timeline. Really interesting. I was also really interested reading that booklet to find out that the same plant can produce a different color if it grows in different parts of the country. So, for example, if I'm using, I don't know, chestnuts or walnuts or something like that, and you are too, but you're like further west, your color might be completely different than mine, even though it's the same plant or the same tree, right? I thought that was interesting. And it also said that you could get a different color result using the exact same plant from one year to the next, even like in your yard. I wonder if anybody wants to comment on that because I thought, wow, that is really fussy, isn't it? That is something to think about. Dyeing enough the first time because it sounds like it could possibly be quite hard to reproduce the same color again with natural dyes, unlike chemical dyes. All right, let's see. Hi, everyone. Good rainy day. Anita, great to see you. Juju, great to see you. Happy Friday. Melanie, happy Friday. All right, I'm going to get going with our slideshow. There's a lot of buddies on tonight. Oh, Juju, you just go on to, if you send me an email at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. So ribboncandyhooking, boom, at gmail.com, and just write in the title gallery night, and I'll use whatever you send me for the next gallery night. It can be a piece you're working on, it can be a finished piece, it can be a piece that you did a while back, it can be an idea, it can be a sketch, it can be supplies, it can be a tip, anything that we would be interested in. Anything that has to do with textiles, rug making, creative ideas that you plan to employ in a rug making project, all of this we're interested in. So I would love to see what you would send. ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. All right, so let's get going. And Kaz is giving a lot of good information. Danny, great to see you. I have your 3 pieces in there. Thank you so much. They're all beautiful. We're going to have those at the end. Kaz is working on a lot of different dye baths. Interesting. I'm keeping an eye on that because I'm curious. And I just want to be sure I said hello to everybody before we get started. And Judy says, yeah, dye plants don't exhaust like acid dyes. I can't imagine leaving a fiber in a dye bath for a month. Wouldn't it get moldy? Wouldn't it get moldy? That's what I was thinking. Because the reason I took the yarn out of the walnut stuff was because it was gross. It was like the lake I fell into today. It was all, mushy and mysterious. It looked septic and disgusting. And it was smelly, and I thought, well, here, this has got to be it. So I took it out. But I agree. I mean, essentially, it's if you've ever done the thing where you dye something, chemical dye, and there's extra color in the pot, and you think, let me get a mason jar. I can't waste anything. I have this like crazy depression era mentality, right? It's just always been there. Sometimes I fill up mason jars with dye, and I think, okay, well, next little bit of yarn I have that I don't have sort of a destiny in mind for, I will put that into the mason jar, and then it will not be wasted. And then I forget about those mason jars, and a month or 2 or 3 or 6 go by, and I look at them, and they look like specimens from like a lab, like a biology, specimen. Things growing in there that really I should maybe submit to science, to Yale or so. They are really putrid and horrific. So I am thinking that could be a problem with leaving stuff in a dye bath for that long. We will see. I love sharing information like this. I'll tell you. Let's go over to gallery night and let's get started. So, Juliet, you are on deck. We are starting with you. Now, these are the images that I had for last gallery night. So I started with these. Juliet, are these the ones you expected me to have? And I have them right up to the present. So I'm going to say, Juliet, first of all, you are a wonderful artist. So the backstory to this is that for the Design Like book I'm working on now, and I have many people helping, and I really appreciate that. I'm just going to also put it out there and say I've been going back and forth a lot with Kathy Wright, and we're talking about solder for this year because I'll be there for a book signing and for a small vendor thing, like a one night thing. I can't be there all week because I just can't. I can't just sit there, But I'll be there for one night for a pop-up. It's kind of like a trunk show thing. And I'll be signing the first book that comes out in July. I'll be there signing it. So if you already have your copy and you go into solder, just bring it. And forget about the book plate. And I'll just sign it for you. And we'll give hugs and we can catch up and maybe get a meal and do all that fun stuff this year. But next year is the year of, I'll be teaching a class that goes along with the Design Like. I'll probably be choosing 4 artists of the ones that we've done to teach in person and some new ones. And for each day, there will be like a color set that goes with it. So for the first half of the day, this is for 2024. So I'll save this. But there's also an exhibit for 2024 that's based on the Design Like book. So everybody who's helping me out completing hooked projects for the Design Like book that I am currently working on, this solder show will include your work, right, in 2024, because this is the theme of the exhibit. So if you are working on something, just know that that's the plan for it. And if you have done any work that is based on the Design Like series that I teach every month, and this month upcoming is Paul Klee, make sure you're ready for him. It's going to be great. I will also put out the fairy tale class part 2 and the color class. I will do that this weekend, I promise. Make sure you let me know if you're working on stuff, because I not only want it for the book, but I want it for that gallery show, and I want it for some other gallery shows that will be coming up in 2024. So just let me know if you have something in the pipeline. So Juliet is working on mid-century modern, and I did a class on mid-century modern a year or 2 ago, and we talked about the 1950s, really the 30s to the end of the 60s, because at the 70s the aesthetic really does change, doesn't it? But during this wonderful sort of atomic period, the 1950s, the architecture is so striking, so different than what came before and what will come immediately after. And this moment in time featured all of these crazy sort of pallety, kidney, irregular shapes, heavy patterning, all this sort of antenna business with the dit dots, right? Like the starburst or sunburst clocks. All of it was so interesting. So, the sculptor and artist Joseph Calder, we talked about him on, I'm sorry, no, not Joseph, come on. What's his first name? Calder. Oh, oh God, this whole night has shaken me up with glitching and all this. Come on, Alexander. Isn't it Alexander Calder? Whew. Anyway, his mobiles, all of that kind of freestyle, pattern repeat, sculpture, hook drugs. Remember on Coffee Time, I covered some hook drugs that his wife had hooked based on his design. This period of design was so severe and very dramatic. And it included a lot of new motifs that were derivative of what was happening in terms of everybody having TV sets, right? There was a lot of TV shapes. If you look behind the sketch of Juliet's cat, this is Juliet's sketch. Absolutely beautiful. Lots of motifs from MCM, mid-century modern. And this piece is called Mid-Century Hearth Cat. And this is a beautiful hearth dimension, hearth shape, thank you, Mum, rug, right? With lots of motifs there. And I love how it's done. It's always very flat, right? We're never looking at shading or any kind of three-dimensional spin on mid-century modern. It's very graphic. One of the newer artists, Shaggy, right? His full name Shaggy, like from Scooby, but different person, real person. Really sort of encapsulated the feel, the look, and the mood, the travel, right? So much travel, so much new technology, so much exotica, right? So much jazz, all of these, so many cocktails, right? All of these things that we really associate with mid-century modern. Juliet, you captured so much of this. And I mean, it's a great sampler and a great homage to mid-century modern. And then you got going, as you do. And I'm making one as well for the chapter, but Juliet is also putting this one in the book. So there's going to be 2 mid-century modern examples in the book by Juliet. And anybody else who's done something mid-century modern, either based on the class that we did together, or you just did it on your own and you think, oh, this could be good for the chapter, please let me know, right? We would love to have as many beautiful pieces as possible in this book. Your pieces too. Even if you're a beginner, still want it. Juliet put this right out on the frame and got going with the mid-century cat hearth rug, and it is just beautiful. And as usual, Juliet, you laid out all of some of these you hand span. You've got so many novelty yarns, so many different yarns, such variety of color, weight, texture, twist, all of it, right? So you always send a lot of beautiful pictures as well. And this is the early stages because gallery night was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? Ryan says, cocktails for breakfast, mid-century modern. Absolutely. Talk about sophisticated, right? Cocktails for breakfast. I wonder when people did start drinking like screwdrivers and mimosas for breakfast. I wouldn't be surprised if it was right around this time. Because when I think about that great series about the comedian on cable, Mrs. Come on. My brain is not working. This is scary. Come on. I know somebody's going to do it. Her husband tries to be a comedian, but but she's funnier, so she ends up being this famous like stand-up comedian, and it's not a true story, but everybody else in the story around her is a real person, and it's very history driven. The Amazing, or something Mrs. Maisel, right? Very much of that period. What was the other TV show that was so popular? Ad Men. I don't think I ever saw that. Was it Ad Men or Mad Men? Something like that, wasn't it? It was a real glimpse into this moment of time, into this period of history, into the fashion, into the culture. Um, yeah, and it almost seems like the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Oh, I think that's my all-time fave, right up there with Selfridge. Such a funny, right? It is so funny. It's very naughty. It's very funny. And huge thank you, Melissa, for the tip on Madame LeBlanc, the mystery series. That is excellent. I've been binge watching that this week. So as you can see, Juliet is building up all of the layers, and we're seeing the order that you do things in, which is very helpful too. We all work in different ways, but you tend to hem up parts of your border and then go for the motifs. I feel like you work on things as they sort of attract you, right? We all work differently. Some of us are the puzzle makers who have to do the border first, or this work from the center out, or work from the top bottom. A lot of very famous rug makers work top to bottom or vice versa. I tend to work the way that Juliet works, and whatever is catching my eye, I tend to outline it and go for it at that moment. You can see the introduction of color, and you are really using a lot of neutrals in this piece, and that was your intention, which is really interesting because, oh, Dave, you just started watching Mrs. Maisel. Oh, it is super wild, isn't it? Fantastic. Juliet, let me write. Juliet, you have been working on the Chesapeake series, right? That was very blue, teal, green, and lots of neutrals. So this is very different for you. This very heavy neutral palette, but this time blacks, browns, right? So a lot of grays, right? And you had some grays in your Chesapeake series, but this is very, very different color wise. So you wrote initially, you were working on the MCM cat and space themed hearth rug. It's 18 by 36. And you said, this is at the beginning, I'm going to attempt to use neutrals with pops of color. And I think that is very good because I think when we think of mid-century modern design, we think of like midnight blues. Midnight blue, is that, wait a minute, midnight blue. It's bad ADHD. Melissa Manchester, right? Midnight something. So you were really steering away from what I think we do associate with the period, which is these dark nighttime scenes, right? Mostly either Hawaiian Island or nighttime scene, and not a lot in between. There's a poem. So that's interesting that you went this route, and I love that you did because it's unexpected, isn't it? Juliet says, I've had a hard time keeping in neutral. I usually hit the colors. Yeah, you do. I hardly had any neutral fibers to spin. Excuse to buy more. Absolutely. Absolutely. Melissa, I also want Madame LeBlanc's hairstyle. It's like the bangs that start far back, heavy, heavy bangs, and she always wears the ponytail really high up on her head. Very British. Very British. So funny. Now you said you'll be using, and this is at the beginning, a lot of your homespun wools and some commercial yarns, wools, velvets, ribbon for texture. So this is what you do, and this is what your work is known for, having this huge fusion of different fibers and textures. Absolutely love it, and it's becoming your signature, which is really important. And you said right now I'm working on the hardwood floor part. So that was the brown stripy, and now it's at the top of your screen that we saw, where you started the hardwood floor below the cat using directional hooking technique and aligning the yarn loops in certain directions. So that's smart, because another thing about mid-century modern textile work is that it's not symmetrical, but it's very balanced and it's very geometric, not symmetrical at all. Right? It's very irregular, but it's very structured, it's very architectural, and it's very balanced, right? It's weighty. You get a lot of strong lines. Right now, you're working on the hardwood floor, and then you said for some details, you're going to be exploring some embroidery techniques on top. And are you still doing that, I wonder? I wonder. Let me see what else you said. I put some new info. So you were more recently, I was on your page. I hope that's okay, your personal page. You said, we're back from the mountains and I made some good progress tonight. I'm liking the clock now. Okay, so let's see. Let me move forward to the next one because I think you're going to show us even more detail. You know, sometimes, okay, so the clock, is the clock, I'm going to go forward even more. Oh, these are such cool motifs. They're so filigree, right? I mean, they really are. Is the clock the thing? Is the clock the thing on the right or the left? I'm curious because I always think of the clocks as the starburst, but it doesn't have to be a starburst, does it? I'm noticing your patterned background as well. This is the one that's as finished as I've seen so far. And you stuck with pretty neutral, didn't you? Blue Bayou. Yes, yes, Paula. And then there's another one. Wouldn't you give your hand to a friend? Something like that, right? Isn't that another midnight? Isn't that Midnight Blue? I just heard it on Spotify and I went, oh God, I love that song. I know, isn't it great? The clock is purple. So the clock is, oh, it's on that table. It's on the bottom motif, right? So we're seeing it in the bottom right-hand corner. It's the irregular thing under that kind of structural, sculptural piece. It's on that black table, right? I think I'm seeing it now. I was picturing a giant wall clock, but it's a little table clock. So you said you're liking the clock now, and you added, after I added the border, the feet, I redid the two hands to tell the time. Okay, that's definitely the clock, and it does have that crazy mid-century modern, very irregular shape, right? Very. I mean, I don't even know what you would call that. It's super irregular. Everything was kind of a stretch of a palette design, like the palette tables, or the starburst designs, right? The atomic stars and all that. There were lots of television shapes that were stretched in irregular ways. Really interesting. And you said the fish still needs some reworking. I think he needs to be smaller, and that variegated brown is too speckled. I wonder if you mean still, because for me, it's not. If you're looking at it on the right, on that sculptural part on the right, I see that there are some speckled parts. But I have to say, for myself, and it's not for me, it's for you, this is your work, I love it. I love everything that I'm seeing right here, and nothing is striking me as distracting at all. I'm liking all of it. And one of the other touches that I really like that you made, that I think was quite daring and different, the cat's face, right? He has that little bottle body, that little bottleneck neck, and the oversized head, but you gave him kind of a crest or a widow's peak. And I don't typically see that. And I like that because it gives the cat a lot of personality. I think that was really smart, very different. Really, really, really love this piece, and I can't wait to see how it comes out. It's so interesting. Most of our Design Light classes are based on a specific artist, and very few of them are based on an idea, like tavern signs, like mid-century modern. And it is interesting to think about things that you like the most in your life that inspire you. And if one of them is like mid-century furniture, then you should really be thinking about making a mid-century design rug, because it's all going to fit together perfectly, isn't it? And then you get to cross over several of your great passions in one project. Really exciting. Yeah, I like everything about it too. So, thinking about the 1950s, right? My head kind of went down the rabbit hole. I put some trivia questions together for us because mid-century modern is not a defined, you would think it would just be 1950 to 1959. It's really not, because the furniture from this period does really hit the late 1940s and that post-war era. And it does go into the 1960s. And depending on who you're talking to, some people will say it goes right through the early 70s. I don't feel that it does. I feel like I said, the aesthetic changed very dramatically in the middle 60s, with pop art, just a much brighter, different style of art, that was way more fluid and sort of hippie, hate Ashbury, all of that stuff kind of crept into popular culture and design. So I don't quite feel like that. I feel like for me, mid-century modern, if you frame it in the 50s, that's a good start, and it will bleed on, like, past the bookends on both sides. So I'm going to ask you a few mid-century modern era trivia questions and see if you can get them. And I'll look and see if anyone's getting them. Joy, good to see you. That cat is great, isn't it, Joy? So good. Melissa says the cat reminds me of an Avon cat I had years ago. Melissa, was it the perfume bottle? Was it the perfume bottle? Because I thought the same thing. I have a little collection of Avon perfume bottles, and one of them is what looks like a mid-century modern cat. There's also a poodle like that with a stretched out neck that's also an Avon bottle. Ryan says early 70s, still mid-century modern to you. And absolutely, I defer to you too. I don't have the sort of end-all do-all feeling on this subject. I will say that when we look at the 70s, we are looking at shapes. If you think of Juliet's piece, we are looking at very irregular shapes and continued patterning, right? So let's just go back just a hair. I just want to look one more time. So if you look at the table with the sculptural thing on it, those motifs like the repeat triangles, and certainly the palette shapes, the stretched palettes, the stretched out TV, like television box shapes, those are shapes that will spill into the 1970s without a doubt. You just need to watch one episode of The Brady Bunch and you see that stuff still. And it is left over from mid-century modern. So it is absolutely legit. If you feel it bleeds into the 70s, I am not going to fight you on that. Not at all. So let me ask you the first trivia. I wouldn't fight you on anything. Let me ask you the first trivia question. What is the name of the scientist who won the 1952, no Googling, 1952 Nobel Peace Prize? Is that on the tip of your tongue? I'm going to have a sip of water. Teddy! I'm dying for a glass of wine. He's down there watching his shows. I love the 50s, 60s shapes. And, you know, it's worth saying, I'm doing do, 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 do while you put your answer in, because I know many of you know the answer. Those mid-century modern shapes, right? Those like kind of boomerang shapes, the surfboard shapes, they really mark the middle of the century. So that's why in my mind, I'm super flexible with the dates on mid-century modern. Even in the class, I wasn't real specific, and I understand how it can stretch. But those shapes really are the foundation of like pop art. So we will see them again and again. No, Judy, that's a good guess. Melanie says it also varies with what part of the country you're in. You know, that's a really good point. That's a really good point because, of course, the two coasts always get stuff first. Where any places where you are right next to it. Yes, Ryan. Yes, Albert Schweitzer. Absolutely right. And I'm going to show you him in just a minute. In parts of the country that, not that they're country, like rural hick places, but sometimes trends reach those places last by years. And it's the way it always has been. And if common sense prevails, it will be the way that it always is. And there's nothing wrong with that. It makes perfect sense. So let me come to Albert's picture here. Albert Schweitzer. And what a cute man he was, too. Let me show you. I had to title this one Secret so I didn't accidentally show you. So, yeah, the answer is Albert Schweitzer. He was a theologian, an organist, a musicologist. He was a writer, a humanitarian, a philosopher, and a physician. And he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his philosophy of, and it was called the Reverence for Life, and his endless, tireless humanitarian work. One of his quotes is the saga, or a quote about him, the saga of his life and his work provides one of the greatest sources of inspiration to the world's efforts to create better conditions for the people. So great sort of hero, humanitarian, and one of these like genius jack of many trades, right? Who was so good at so many different things and many different disciplines. Question number 2. In 1953, the Rosenberg couple were executed for what crime? Do you remember this from history books? This was such a horrible story. It was, you know, once it's like locked into your head as a student, it's hard to take it out again because it was one of these crazy situations. While you're writing your answers, I don't think I can expand on it without spoiling it. I'll see what you have to say. Well, you know, since there's a delay, I'm going to shoot my mouth off because if you put the answer in, it'll come to me in a minute. The answer is espionage. Do you remember this whole story? Yes. Yes, Kaz. Exactly, Ryan. Yeah, it's the communism. I'll accept that too. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed for conspiracy to commit espionage under the U.S. Espionage Act of 1917. Members of the Communist Party, the Rosenbergs, were convicted of passing secret information about the atomic bomb to the Russians. I'm sorry, to the Soviet Union in 1945. So that's quite bad, right? That's quite bad. Kidnapping and murder. No, that's I mean, I'm thinking about Lindbergh for kidnapping of the child, right? That was a horrible story. Um, taking baby or something. You know, we are crossing wires on this story. That's really interesting, isn't it? Because those are two horrific stories. I have to say the Lindbergh story was way worse because the child never came back, right? That was the end of the child. This is also very bad, right? Passing on information to it's sort of mortal enemy on an atomic bomb. Also quite bad. So let's look at a picture of, talk about this. Oh my gosh, you know, I forgot about that. They do talk about that on Mrs. Maisel. That's the thing that I love. One of the many things I love about that show is it's such a time capsule for fashion, for news, for everything. I completely forgot about that. So this is them. You know, it's hard to not, I don't know. This must be something wrong with me because it's hard to look at anybody and know what the end was and to not feel awful about it. Yeah, Lindbergh. Oh, the Lindbergh baby. They talked about this too, didn't they? I mean, I feel like they did because I feel like I've had a reprise of this story recently. Oh, not good, not good. So third trivia question. Let's see. Okay, maybe this is maybe an easy one. Who was the first? Who was on the first Playboy magazine cover? I'm going to phrase it like that because otherwise I'm going to R.I.P. Rosenbergs. I know up to some naughty stuff though. There's consequences in life, aren't there? The Lindbergh yeah, the Lindbergh kidnapping was like the 30s, wasn't it, Melanie? I mean, the 20s. Was it the 20s or the 30s? Oh, that's going to drive me nuts. See if somebody can put it in the thread. I don't dare fool around. I think it must have been. I think it must have been because he was like a celebrity in the late 20s, wasn't he? I'm thinking about when his ticker tape parade was and all that. Yes, Ryan, you're right. Did you know that? You are right. All right, so let me tell you something about this because I thought this was an interesting. I don't know that I would have gotten this one right. I mean, Betty Page, there's so many models who are so famous at this time. Yeah, it was Marilyn. And one of the interesting things about this is the cover. And if you find this in an antique store, make sure you snap it up because this is a super, super, super expensive copy, right? The original, super expensive. The interesting thing about this is that Marilyn didn't actually pose for this cover. Um, the founder of Playboy, Hugh Hefner, right? We all know plenty about him, I'm sure, more than we need to know, felt an immense connection with Marilyn Monroe, who had taken her famous nude photos like years before the magazine's debut, but he used them in the sort of maiden voyage, maiden being a weird choice of words in this case, of Playboy magazine. So I thought that was interesting. That I guess he chose her because the nude photos were already known and whatever. And obviously she's beautiful and her body's beautiful and the photos are beautiful. Lindbergh flew new top, flew new top. Whitney says, I ordered a case of like, okay, so here comes, hold on. We're going to pause and talk about Ultra Punch. Whitney says, I ordered a case of like 800 cards for floss for my Ultra Punch. I know what you mean, those little white ones that you wrap your material around. Is that what you mean? For your Ultra Punch, I accidentally had it sent 2.5 hours away from my parents' house instead of mine. I immediately thought of when you imitate Steve. Really thought of when you imitate Steve. When you imitate Steve. I bet that's a typo, and we're going to figure out what that is. Juliet says, is the Maryland cover still copyrighted? Might be fun to hook. That's interesting. It can't be because it's after 1928. So as far as magazines, I think 1928 is the golden number this year. And this year is 2000. Is 19. I started by saying 19. Did you hear that? This year, if you're watching this in the future, is creepy and also 2023. So for us right now, the magic number is 1928. Oh, I'm so sorry. That is so frustrating, Whitney. That is so frustrating. And Dave said Lindbergh flew nonstop to New York to Paris 1927. I think it took 12 hours. And the baby thing was shortly after that, wasn't it? Because he was such a celebrity at the time. Isn't that? I hate thinking about this story, but isn't that why he was kind of targeted? Because he was so visible. Ryan says, Juliet, great idea. Marilyn is such, like I always say, if it's going on your wall and you're not making copies and stuff. But yeah, I don't think it's out of copyright just yet. I think we've got to wait. It's different for movies because I think movies starting 1946 are now copyright free. I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it works different for every medium. And magazines, I'm pretty sure is 1928. Oh my gosh, I almost showed you the next answer. After this, I'm going to watch Back to the Future. I know, right? I feel like there's a new Back to the Future or something about Back to the Future. Did I dream that? Or did I see that somewhere on Facebook? Mom, I have to say the meme. Did you all see this? I know not everybody's on Facebook. Tell me if this is funny, right? I need collaboration. It made me think of the Blue-Nosed Garrett pattern, the Three Bears. My mother said this the other day. She was on her computer and I was working on the design for Juliet. I finished my MCM Modern show. I'll show it to you after the show. But she said she was reading this meme and it said, I find it hard to hold on. I find it hard to believe that three bears were making porridge and the only thing that was wrong was the temperature. I mean, Is that funny? I mean, because I laughed for like 20 minutes. It just is so absurd, right? All of our talk about fairy tales and stuff. Like, yeah, you're thinking bears in the kitchen. Like, there's going to be a lot of things that don't work with the recipe, and it's just the temperature, a little bit too cold, a little bit too warm. Oh, I thought that was so funny. I want to drive a DeLorean, Juliet. 1932 for the kidnapping. I was just going to say, oh, good, but you know I don't mean it that way. That is so Steve Urkel. Oh, Whitney. Oh, how did I do that? Oh, I forgot. I haven't done it for a while. Oh, that is so funny. Oh, man. All right. So, okay. So I have a couple more trivia questions for you. So this is a fashion one, but I think anybody could think it out, right? Which popular female clothing item was introduced in 1959 by Alan Gant? So maybe that name triggers a memory for you on packaging, right? Ooh, I might have given something away right there just by saying the word packaging. Um, I thought you were just overtired, but you're laughing so hard again about the porridge. It's like so... Oh, don't get me started. Here comes my man. Here comes my man. He's making a Friday night appearance, right? So at the end of his spring break, life is good when you are 11 and you've eaten more candy and ice cream in the last 12 hours than anybody has ever done before.
Come on, I only had a few pieces.
That's not true. Oh, that's not true. Bullet bra. That's a good guess. No, it is pantyhose. Well done. It is pantyhose. Dave. Legs. Yes, Lisa. But Gant pantyhose, right? I think that was the brand. You all are good. I would not have gotten that at all.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah. I'll see you later, sweet stuff. I love you too. Go ahead. You want to put your face in one more time? My sweetheart. All right, there he goes. Pantyhose is the answer. Well done. Yeah, interesting, because if you think about it, people were using the pull-up hose like during the 1940s, right? And if you didn't have the money for, during the war when women didn't have them, we all know the story about drawing a line up the back of your leg to look like hose, but it would stop because they had like the garter top. They were the pull-ups, right? Not like the whole hose. Interesting. Oh, you got a lot of hellos, Teddy. Juliet, I miss those stockings, the legs, eggs. I miss that packaging so much. Seeing them at like the cap of the aisle at the grocery store, right? The end caps. They were always like a colorful display with like lots of different colors and all the egg shapes. It was like Eastery every day. Thank you all for saying hi to Teddy. I'll tell him. Peggy Sue got married. It's in the movie. Oh, I haven't seen that for ages too. Lisa says, I remember my grandmother wearing garter belts and stockings in the 60s. So much trouble. I mean, I've got Teddy sweatpants on, and they have like a tiny tie on them, and I'm like, God, do they really need to put this tie here? I mean, they have an elastic waist, but we're so spoiled now for the way that we dress in terms of historic costume, right? So next one. Okay, this is a hard one. So, and this is a British one. Andrea. So in 1952, the longest running play, right, that would later become the longest running play because it's still running, opened in London. What was the name of that play? I know somebody's going to know this. Juliet says, I'm so glad I didn't need to wear stockings, and you don't need to wear stockings and suits for work anymore. I know. What a curse it is to be uncomfortable, right? Melanie, I always think of Robin Hood, men in tights. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, if you don't have to wear them anymore, just hope you kept them because you can cut them up and hook with them. Andrea, well done. I don't know how many times I've seen that. Bonnie, well done. Lisa, that's a great guess. Mousetrap is an Agatha Christie mystery, and I'm not going to do a spoiler alert because it is so good. Whether you think you like mysteries or not, it is crazy good. Judy, no, that's another good guess. Phantom of the Opera has been playing for a long time. The longest running musical of all time until 9/11 was The Fantastics, not The Phantom of the Opera, because that opened, I want to say 1952, something like that, at the Sullivan Street Theater. That's an off-Broadway, so it depends on how the question is phrased. But the longest running musical for years and years was considered The Fantastics. Now, since that's been closed since shortly after 9/11, well, it went to the Snapple Theater for a while in Times Square. I wonder if Phantom is now the longest running musical. The longest running thriller of all time. Does anybody know the longest running thriller? Not mystery, because The Mousetrap is considered a mystery, like based on it's an Agatha Christie play. Fantastic twist at the end. That's the biggest spoiler I'm going to say. I'm not going to spoil it for you. No, Ryan, that is one of my favorites. If anyone's seen Arsenic and Old Lace in person, what a creepy with the Teddy Roosevelt character. I mean, it's just crazy. Also a Cary Grant movie, and it is fantastic. And that you're all super knowledgeable about the theater. I'm really impressed. Isn't the theater so much fun? Isn't it so much fun? Um, that Arsenic and Olays, the true story actually happened in Connecticut, in Windsor, Connecticut. It's very different than the screenplay that became the Cary Grant movie, and very different from the stage play as well, because those two are similar. It was a true story about this woman who um, she was like buddied up with this creepy guy, right? She was creepy herself. She was the main creep, but they decided to open a like old folks home, and they were just killing people off left and right. It was like, I mean, I knew the figures not that long ago, because I went to visit it a year or two ago. I drive by Windsor all the time on my way to my mom's, and I mean, it was insane how many people died in a short time. People who were in their 50s, because not all of them were old folks and not all of them needed medical care. Some of them were just like guys in their 50s who maybe were salesmen and they only needed to have that sort of residence two weekends a month, right? So they checked in. They were killing people off. It was like a crazy number of people that they killed off, this pair. And I remember reading at one point that she and the guy like parted ways. I don't know if she killed him off or what happened with that, but she was saving money for her first husband to have a memorial stained glass window at the local church, which is still there. I don't know if that part of the story is true, but I remember reading that at one point. But what a horrific story. That's what Arsenic and Olace is actually based on. Oh, I bet it could rest in peace, Cary Grant. That's it. I wonder if it was his first role. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised because when I picture it, he is young in that. I always cross Arsenic and Old Lace with what's the one with Pie Wacket, the cat? The other kind of witchcraft one. Isn't that another Cary Grant? You know the one I mean? See, I need to watch it because I can't remember. Mousetrap play ran in Toronto for 30 years. Did it? I can see why with the kind of British connection, right? Culturally, there's such a link. But oh, I'm not surprised. I love that play. I am always creeped out in the last 10 minutes. Chrissy, great to see you, Juliet. I remember that too. That was our dress code, pantyhose and closed toe shoes. Oh, that's awful. Maybe for a starring role. That makes sense. Bell Book and Candle, that's it. Thank you, Mom. Bell Book and Candle. Those two remind me of each other because they're comedies that are a little bit dark, right? A little bit mysterious. Oh, Bonnie, don't get me started with Topper. Those are fantastic. Does everybody know the Topper series? Those are fantastic. I'm trying to think of the author of the Topper series now. I have them all. And I think they're first editions too. Oh, such a famous writer. British writer, of course. Those were great. Those were great. Oh my gosh. Topper was a ghost. And all kind they were like 1920s era books, right? And they do not lose their luster if you like to read older books. The Topper series, right? I can't remember how many there were, maybe 3 or 4. It wasn't like a huge series. But yeah, it was about a ghost, like a comedic ghost. It was kind of like Harvey the Rabbit later, right? That movie, like this thing that some people could see and others couldn't. My memory of reading those books is like they could have been written yesterday. They were so funny and interesting and so much fun. Ryan says, I Married a Witch, starring Veronica Lake. I've not seen that. National Hair Muse. I have not seen that. Oh, Sharon, Bell Book and Candle was Jimmy Stewart. See, I cross them too. One of my favorite Jimmy Stewart, I'm going to stop and we're going to talk about rugs again. One of my favorite Jimmy Stewart movies is, it's that movie, it's a Christmas movie. It's based on the movie She Loves Me is based on it. I think it's called The Corner Store. Sometimes I mention it during our Christmas shows. But it's supposed to be set, I want to say, in like Vienna. They all have American accents, so that's very confusing. But it's like it's also the inspiration for the movie um, You've Got Mail. It's like it's the basis for this movie, but it's a 19 I want to say 1930s 1940s movie, and Jimmy Stewart is so young in this movie. But the idea is that there are two people working at this small department store that are like corresponding with each other through like this romantic club or whatever. They're like letter writing, and they found each other and they write to each other every day, and they are fighting like cats and dogs at work. And if you watch it, it is just like You've Got Mail, except You've Got Mail is updated and it's on the computer, but it's basically the same arch to the storyline. It is so good. Thorne Smith, absolutely, Judy. It's Thorne Smith. And he wrote lots of other books too that weren't part of the Topper series. And they are all hilarious. I want to say like The Glorious Pool might be one of them. That is like one of my favorites. We Better Stop. Although I love when we talk like this. Um, Thorne Smith. So, Did She Fall? I think that's one of his too. That was, I think, his only mystery. Did She Fall is the title. Um, yeah, I was searching for his books for a while because they are good. They are a little dated, but they're super funny. I think those are both his too. If memory still serves. Google says Thorne Smith, Topper movie, Constance Bennett and Cary Grant. Interesting. I did not know Cary Grant for that. I did not know that. That seems early. Dave says Veronica Lake, great interview on Dick Cavett show, YouTube. Sadly died at 50. No relation to me, sadly. Oh, I would like to see that. I would really like to see that. And Ryan recognizes that. R.I.P. Veronica Lake. You know, we love old stuff on this channel, don't we? We end up talking about a lot of people who are long gone. But we should still talk about them, right? Because we're probably, a bunch of us, log off tonight and go pull up one of these movies that we're talking about. Shop Around the Corner, that's it. Dave, that's it. The Shop Around the Corner. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. If you have any inclination, you must watch it. And if you loved You've Got Mail, you're going to like this even more, I think. It is so sweet and funny. Super young, Jimmy Stewart. Last question. No, I have two more trivia questions for you. More MCM, right? We're way at the beginning of the episode still. In the 1950s, now think this one through. In the 1950s, you could store money for a bus ride or a phone call in what item that you wore? Personally, I love the Francis the Talking Mule movies. You know, I don't know those. The Francis the Talking Mule movies. Interesting. Rugs, Ryan says. We'll get back to Rugs. You were instigating too. You were part of that rabbit hole. um, so what do you think? What article that you would wear? Judy, you got it right out of the gate. These are good guesses. Penny loafers. Now, yes, absolutely. So let's talk about this, because does anybody know definitively, did people really wear like loafers to carry bus money? I mean, oh, wait a minute. I messed that up. Hang on. Hang on. Secret images. Let me make sure we're good here. Okay. I don't want to show any that we haven't shown yet. So penny loafers. Did people really do this? I mean, was it that difficult to use your pocket or your purse? Because it seems to me like the chance of your coin falling out of your shoe would be way higher. But you all are getting this. So you all knew. I was really surprised. I honestly was, because I thought, I mean, I've seen penny loafers and I've worn penny loafers, but I didn't think people really counted on that little opening to really store money if you needed to ride the bus. I was totally part of the rabbit. Oh, we're back on track. I just looked cool to have money in your loafer. I mean, it does look cool. I mean, yeah, I was just surprised. I thought, interesting. Did anybody do this? Did anybody actually use coins for stuff in your loafers? I mean, it looks very cool. I was just surprised. I thought that was just what they were called. I didn't know that they were ever meant to be functional, especially a quarter. It looked cool to have money in your loafer. Yeah, I mean, it does look cool. I mean, it's pretty and shiny. It looks like a little buckle or something. I just never thought it was a literal thing, right? It was interesting. So here's your last trivia question. In the 1950s, what advertising campaign, there's an advertising campaign called Fire and Ice, came from which company? Do you remember this? We're kind of still under the category of fashion. Fire and Ice. This was like the name that went with the brand for like almost the entire decade of the 1950s. I wonder if you remember or you take a guess. Sadly, not that old. Emergency phone call nickel. Interesting. We just put pennies in for decoration, Mom. Yeah, I mean, I think when I had penny loafers for Catholic school, I think we put pennies in too, just, because we thought it was cool and they fit. But yeah, interesting. We did it too in the 80s. Yeah, absolutely, April, right? That was when I did it too. That's funny. So I will tell you, in case you're writing and we are on a delay, the 1950s Fire and Ice campaign was a makeup brand, and it was Revlon. I actually thought Max Factor when I read the question. Firestone tires. No, Lisa, that would be really smart. That would make a lot more sense. Interesting. Yeah, they could still use it now, right? It's been a while. Interesting. Tires makes a lot of sense. No, I'll show you the ad for it too. It's in a lot of vintage magazines. So I knew it was makeup because I recognized the phrase, right, from all my department store rabbit holes. But yeah, I thought it was Max Factor, but Revlon, they were right up there as a competitor for decades. So back to, hold on, Andrea, I'm finding my sheet of paper. This is Andrea's piece from the last gallery night. Hang on while I find, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. All right, we're good. So Andrea said, this piece is called Everything Stops for Tea. What a great piece. Andrea, you are like house on fire worker over there. I'm telling you, you are pumping out some really beautiful pieces. This is a 12 by 12 wool piece, and you're using sparkling stellina. It's your new fave, your new favorite. I think still is stellina like Angelina for us as a kind of, oh, Melanie, De Beers diamonds. That would make a lot of sense too. Juliet loves the lace. Yeah, and she would too because you love all the mixed textiles. It looks so quaint, so sweet. It is absolutely so beautiful. It's on monk's cloth. And you have this mounted. Is this another John project? You have this mounted on MDF, which is like particle board. And you said lace border is sewn to the excess backing, John's idea, to represent a doily. And I think that is a great idea. And I think it really pops the charm, the subject of the piece, right? You really do get that tea room feel, right? You're ready for somebody to slam down the clotted cream and the cucumber sandwiches with the crusts cut off. It really has that charm. The lace really helps it along. It's a good size lace too. I like how it's flat. John to the rescue. Good old John, right? I like how it's flat and it's a substantial piece of lace. I like it so much more than if I picture like kind of a ruffled up piece of lace. I like this much more. It looks like more kind of old fashioned tatty, like all lace is tatted, but unless it's machine made. But it really looks like a nice old time example, and it really fits with the sort of Victorian feel of this piece, right? I think that's what we're getting from it is people are probably going, oh, the colors are very Victorian. The subject is very Victorian, and with it being framed from lace, it is very Victorian. And the sad part of this was that you said it's for a friend who's still recovering from a nasty fall from last year. Oh, your poor friend. It sounds like they've been struggling for a long time, and I'm sure that this piece helped a lot. Let us know what her response was when you gave her this piece. It really is so, so sweet. It's so great when you're finishing off your pieces to think about touches like this that fit with the theme of the piece, right? Particularly when we always are banging our heads against the wall going, how do I finish this piece, right? It's so smart. Andrea, you're such a natural with this, like with the Santa thing, with the frame and all the sweater pieces. You are doing some really creative finishes, and that is another one of your stunning pieces. Ryan, speaking of stunning pieces, I love your new piece. I know you have a newer piece than this, but this is your second newest piece, right? And you dyed all the yarn, the wool yarn for this yourself. It's called Cherry Piece, and it's 12 by 12. That is your golden shape, isn't it? Wool yarn on burlap. I love that you dye your yarn. I love that you use yarn. I love that you use burlap. This is another kind of sampler piece that is a great storytelling kind of piece. I mean, it doesn't have to have a story. It's just like, it's very motif driven, isn't it? I love the cherries. I love the sampler quality to this, because I'm thinking about your pieces that are hanging in Hartford right now. But when I look at this piece, this is very different because if you think about a sampler, the very nature of a sampler, it doesn't have to be contained within equa-sized boxes or frames, right? If fabulous colors, Juliet. It can be something like this, where you have outsized cherries, right? Supersized cherries, this twisting tulip on the left, stars, beautiful summery blue sky, and the corner of a rainbow, right? All different motifs. And the word peace, right? That's a motif as well. You can have all different motifs jammed into one composition like a composite, right? And it's a sampler, right? There's no right way to make a sampler. You put the things that you're thinking of, that you have colors for. Okay, question. Let's hear the question. I'm dying to hear it. I know Ryan's going to know the answer. And April says, really cute piece, Ryan. Love the color changes in the cherries. I do too, and I love that kind of that diamond kind of sparkle on the cherry. Really good color changes, and I bet when you dyed that yarn that you got a lot of color change within that red, right? Because you've got very light values of the red and very, very deep values. How did you get the white in the background with the blue? That's a great question. I'm guessing, Ryan, that it is like it's all blue, but some of it, maybe the way that you had it tied or twisted in the dye bath, some of the blue didn't reach all of the yarn. Is that how you did it? And as you hooked, it essentially, if when you drop your material into the dye bath and you don't stir it a ton, or if it's knotted up at all, you will end up with a piece that has some very, very light values and then the full blast high potency value of the same color, right? Of the same color. And that's great for rug making because you get the lightest and the darkest of the same shade, which creates a lot of interest. And it's a very easy thing to do. You just don't stir. It's the easiest thing in the world. You drop it in the dye bath and then you walk away and you don't tend to it at all. I mean, the easiest thing in the world. Ryan says, I dye all of my wool yarn with Cushing dye and steam them in mason jar. Okay, so you're putting them in mason jars. It's always imperfect, and that's how I like it. So that is great, right? That is great. I remember you did the mason jar dyeing when I put that out like last summer or something. Last fall. It was last fall. The thing with mason jars, right, and they come in different sizes, right? You get the small ones that are like the jam jars, and then you get the really big monsters. So depending on how much wool, fabric, yardage, or yarn you're putting into the jar, it could be very, very loosey-goosey, right? And then the color is going to strike all of it, but not evenly. Unless you're like stirring it in there, which you're probably not. That defeats the purpose. But if it's jammed in there, there will be parts of your material, particularly yarn, right? Because it gets all coiled up and snaked up. There will be parts of it that never touch the actual dye, right? They get wet, but the dye will have exhausted all the other pieces it finds first, right? It's like the blob monster, right? It catches what it catches, and then it's exhausted. So you do get that unevenness, which is really welcome for a lot of rug hookers. Really loving that not solid mottled effect. Really interesting. Beautiful piece, Ryan. Another beautiful piece from you. I absolutely love, love, love. Piece from Beverly. Beverly is another buddy that is busy all the time. Beautiful piece based on an applique quilt pattern that she has. This is I say Sunbonnet Sue because that is like one of the character names, but originally these characters were called Sunbonnet Babies, right? And they weren't named Sue. So interesting. But it is based on this character, Little Sunbonnet Sue holding Little Sunbonnet Baby with a yellow kind of rain jacket on, holding an umbrella under the rain. Everything is wet. It seems like the ducks are enjoying it, right? It's kind of standing in a puddle. Really sweet piece, hooked with yarn. And Beverly, I don't know if Beverly's on, she normally dyes her own yarn too and does all kinds of original work like this. I absolutely love the piece. I love the colors in this piece. I love the movement, and it's so interesting to find examples where you get this much kind of hit or miss. Now in this case it's monochromatic, it's blue, but you've got a lot of hit or miss blue happening in the background, and it's very directional. The puddle is operating like a circle as one would expect, but the rain is coming down at a diagonal. And it makes a really interesting hit or miss pattern that goes in super contrast, like spring showers make or April showers make May flowers, right? All that blue rain coming down is absolutely beautiful to look at, but it's in sharp contrast to that grassy green border with the flowers popping up. So this is a great storytelling piece. The ducks are cute. I love that one gold wing, right? Just articulated that one little part, and then the one dark eye and the little beaks. Very, very sweet. I love how they're all pointed in the same direction. It does have a great comic graphic quality to it, because for a while the Sunbonnet Babies were a comic strip for like less than a year. It was not successful, but really, really sweet. Puddle ducks are so cute. Absolutely adorable. Oh, so cute. Goretti, you sent something so beautiful in. You said, "Hi, Deanna. I am so proud of my husband, Mike Thompson. This is his first punch needle project." What? That's crazy. I went, what? I think it is great. He did his son Tim with an Oxford number 13, right? So that is like the really fine one, that doesn't punch too high, because it looks like Mike is using the backside, the working side, as the correct side. And I don't like to say the right side anymore, because it's pretty 50-50 whether people like to display the working side or the loop side. But if you are thinking that you do want to display the working side, as is done here so successfully, I would say you should be using a 13, or you should be using a lot of washers on your punch needle, because there's no reason to waste all of those loops and that height on the back if you don't plan to display the back. This is absolutely beautiful, using a number 13 needle and wool yarn. He's always encouraging me in my rug hooking, so this is my turn. And she says, "Thanks, Goretti." So beautiful. He's so handsome, but what a beautiful piece of art. I'm seeing more and more portraiture lately, and it is so outside of my talent zone that it's crazy. I'm completely mystified by the amount of detail and the graphic quality, because this is very pop art graphic, right? It is realism, but it's not photorealism. In one regard it is, right? Because it's like a black and white photo, but we do see lots of examples of punched portraiture that is absolutely exquisite, going crazy with color, and that works too. So it is kind of like a kind of natural extension of photorealism for rug makers, right? We're going more and more toward this. I think the punch needle does really make this more possible, because the best examples, Chantel, I think, what is it, Neuf? Um, there's another girl in our Facebook group, which is called Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club, that does a lot of beautiful portraiture. I think the best examples, like this piece by Mike Thompson and pieces I've seen in our group, I have to say the detail for me does look better looking at the working side of a punched piece. Um, I think it's a lot more tricky. And I am not the hooker that most of you are, that's for sure. I am not that good. I think it's harder with hooking. And that's just my opinion. From trying to make faces, right? That's just my opinion. It's hard with hooking, because you do have a pile, whereas with this you really are not getting a pile. We're getting 4 values of gray making up the skin tone, and it really works. 2 values of hair color, right? This is really extraordinary, because it's not like there's 50 shades of gray. Isn't that the book? Did I just say the name of the book? It's not like I have not read that book. I probably could use a good read of that. But yeah, that just popped into my mind for some reason. 4 is not very many, and to be fair, one of them is white. So we're really talking about 3 values of gray. And the latest one that's closest to the white it's a warmer gray, right, than the other 2. So that's interesting. That's really interesting. It is very realistic, Veronica says. It's a lot of detail. It really is something. I feel like a tomato. Everyone here is so talented. I feel like a tomato too. I can't do this stuff at all, believe me. I think a bunch of us are great at primitives and graphics, and other people are just so good at portraiture and the stuff that the rest of us find impossibly hard. Judy says it makes me think of the moire patterns in old newspaper photos back when they used dot screens rather than digital pixels. It absolutely, there is, that is a strong association. You just reminded me accidentally. I'm not going to go down another crazy rabbit hole, but another show while I was with my mom. What was it, Mom? It was another mystery series. One of them took place in like a magazine office, and it revolved around photographs. It reminded me of that, old photographs from this era, from that era. It was called, I think, the Miss Fisher mysteries. I don't know if you know, if anybody knows those. We watched 3 of them, binge watching. They were fantastic. No tomatoes here. None of you are to stop the tomato talk. You know what would be a great pattern? A bunch of tomatoes, like a bunch of us, just a bunch of tomatoes, sitting out in a still life, just tomatoing it up, right? Celebrate your inner tomato. Uh-oh. I think I have to make a rug now that says celebrate your inner tomato. That sounds so funny. Gaynor says, thank you, Deanna, for all of the work you do. You know, I did it twice today because it glitched out. You are so welcome. I enjoy this so much too because I learn so much when I'm looking at everybody's work. And I am just astounded that this is a first piece. I am just astounded. Absolutely huge, huge kudos and congratulations on a stellar first piece, right? Right out of the park. Ryan says, I did a portrait Patrick Nagel style. Oh, you did. Ryan, I loved that with 2 colors. That's the one that like reminded me of Duran Duran because he used, you know, one of the Patrick Nagels on a cover. Yours was amazing, and I love that it was in the style of. You are really clever. Franny Fisher. Yep, that's it. Absolutely, Franny Fisher. The Miss Fisher Mysteries. They are Australian. That's right. They are so cute. Really good. They're a little bit sexy. They're a little bit like Agatha Christie meets, I don't know, Mrs. Maisel. Kind of, right? Oh, Kaz, you finished your Red Red Robin comes bop bop bopping along, along, and it's time for Red Robin to come bopping. This looks so good. You said, hi, Deanna. I finished punching the robin. Yes, I ran out of the background yarn. Hey, I can't tell. Let's figure out what you did. That I had snow dyed. Yeah. So, and it's not like you're going to snow dye anymore in Wisconsin right now, is it? I mean, we're past that. So you said, I remember you added more leaves and berries. That's really ingenious. That's the way to do it. Problem solving, right? Instead of flipping your flipper, right? Think about it, assess the situation, and make a good decision based on what your choices are. Covering stuff up, I don't want to hear me say this too loud, is usually a really good move. Didn't sound right, but you know what I mean. Using the leaves and adding berries, absolutely brilliant. And I actually like the pattern better this way too. You said I punched with a number 14 for the letters and berries, but I used a number 9 so number 14 overall and a number 9 for the letters and berries, right? The letters and berries are number 9. And you said you're going to make it into a pillow. Oh, that is going to be so cheerful. I love his little body. You did such a nice job on this piece. It really is extraordinary. I love that colored background, and I love the grapey berry feel to it. It's very cohesive because the color of the text really looks like the color of the berries. It is. And it makes everything just seem so lush and delicious. So, so, so pretty. So I love the link that you created so that I can read the story behind each piece. I can't wait. Oh, you're the Wednesday episode. Yep, for the episode that's hanging up the rug show, the Romance of Fiber Art that's hanging up in Hartford. That is there for you forever on the Ribbon Candy Hooking site. You can go there anytime and go through every piece. Did you catch the Wednesday episode when I was live at the Hartford Charter Oak Cultural Center, and we went through for over an hour each of the pieces, and I was just reminding you that they are on the website and you can pull them up and you can read those backstories and talk about a rabbit hole because everybody submitted their own backstories for the different pieces in there. Some of them beautiful, some of them sad, some of them poignant, all of them inspirational. So I hope that when you have time to really go down a rabbit hole, you pull that up. Because that was a lot of fun. Watch the Wednesday episode too, just to sort of get a whole overview of that great exhibit that will be up there until June 8th, if you are anywhere near Hartford. Deborah, you sent a gorgeous piece as well. This is your current piece inspired by the Design Like Vogue covers class. And you said it's kind of primary, two-dimensional without a lot of shading. Well, that is what the Vogue covers are like. Very graphic, no shading. And you said my next two pieces I've planned will include more shading. I used needle felting to create more line definition. Good for you. Crossing techniques. That is fantastic. I think doing this very sparingly is the key. My real difficulty, which I consider all part of the learning, is to choose the right wool, knowing how it will look when it's hooked. Right texture, color, not too dark, not too light, not too bright or dull. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. That's the whole challenge. I plan to make good notes to help with this in the future. You know, Deborah, the only thing I have to say about that, and I don't mean this to be a discouraging sentiment, and I'm going to come back to your piece in just a minute, is that what you just described, right, is the eternal work of a rug hooker, a rug maker, or an artist in general, I think, right? But particularly a fiber artist, if we're talking about texture and tones and right color, right everything. The thing with that is that it will always be different for the next project. So it's good to take notes. It's good to collect information and data as you go along and think to yourself, well, this definitely didn't work this time and I had to change this and I had to do this to compensate. But at the end of the day, and again, this isn't negative, right? This is carte blanche. Every project will be different. And you can use some of that information that you've gathered because that's part of its experience. You're building experience. But at the end of the day, it'll be a whole different set of big question marks that you encounter in your next project. And really, that is the joy. That is the joy. All of those funny challenges and little mysteries that you have to solve, that is the joy. So yeah, the more experienced you become, the easier it is to make a diagnosis next time when something's going wrong. But at the end of the day, it will be so different every time, won't it? And that's my favorite part of this. That's what keeps things lively. I absolutely love this piece. So this is from the Design Like class. You were super inspired by like a character that was kind of like a trophy character. Can you explain the line work again? Maybe zoom in. Yep, let's zoom in definitely. And April said the fire. Oops, wait a minute. My cursor grabbed the wrong. Hang on. We're playing games. I got this. I got this. Let me, I also love your frame, Deborah. See how the frame is doing pinchies on the side? Instead of being like all the way around, it looks like it might come out that central piece, almost like a canvas, right? And then it does pinchies. Does anybody know anything about this kind of frame? This is really extraordinary. Deborah, I'm not sure if you're on. This is I haven't seen this frame yet. Looks very, very cool. Looks very Art Deco. And April said, the fire is great. This rug is great. I also love the idea of needle felting in the line work. Yeah, let's pull it even closer. I like that too a lot. I think the fire is exceptional as well. Let's drag this a little more open. What I was going to say, it's going to lose a little integrity the larger I pull it. I'm thinking you did the felting around the shoulders on the silhouette. And until you mentioned that, I didn't notice. I quite like this. I quite love this. I love the room. I love the sconce on the wall that you're going to do. I love the fireplace. It looks like marble. I love that relaxed couch in the background. I love the directional hooking. It looks like you're hooking in a pretty small cut, maybe a 3 or a 4, and then some larger pieces. But I love the busy sort of fill of her dress and her hair, and then the very structured directional hooking in the background. It makes a really geometric effect. Very mixed, Juliet. It really is. And with a simple, it's not that simple, is it? It's a simple idea, and there are simple lines, but there's actually a lot going on. And I think that this piece has actually, Deborah, become hard because you're using a lot of neutrals. The neutrals are what make it great, and the neutrals are what make it hard. So because it's a limited palette, you did find that you needed to pop and sort of make some delineate. I'm struggling for the word. Distinction, contrast between the flesh color and the background colors because they're both neutrals. But with those simple lines that you did, it works. I like how you didn't do the outline on the bottom of the line. She seems more in flight. She seems more in motion with limited lining. I think that's probably where you did the felting. You were smart to do it. It worked great. It solved the problem beautifully. And it didn't make it so structured that it takes away from the flow and freedom of her movement. Because I feel like if you outlined her, it would almost be like tracing a dead body at the murder scene. I like that you didn't do that, and not with the dress either. You did it where it was necessary. It's very lyrical how it comes and goes, that black line. And the rest of her is very, very free, right? She's not outlined. Because you have to think about it when you outline. It does give you a great graphic look. It gives you a comic book look. And maybe the Dead Body Association was not a good one. Shame on me. But, it does change the look of something. And this is very gossamer. It has all of those grays give me a very ethereal feel. And I feel like if it was too outlined, it would become more comic booky, and that ethereal feel would be lost. The movement is very graceful, and you have kept that and done what you needed to do to shore up the places in this composition where there was a problem with contrast. And that is the best that you can do, is figure out how to problem solve these problems without getting frustrated, without getting bewildered, without giving up, right? Absolutely love it. I'm just reading your comments. Melissa says her hair looks like New Zealand stream yarn. That's very interesting. It is. It's very, I'm noticing that too. It almost looks like little caterpillars or something. They're coming up like beautiful little coils. Juliet says the lines are really necessary since the color intensity values are so similar. Absolutely. When you have similar tones, you can get yourself into trouble. And I think what has been done here is absolutely the right amount. It is the perfect amount. And to be honest, I'm enough of a boob that I think I would have outlined the whole thing. Just being the way that I am, I'm like a robot once I get going with something. I don't think that I would have second guessed myself and said, let me leave some of the lines. I think I've done what needed doing. I can stop now, right? It's the same with eating with me. It's like, I think I'm so full that I've unbuttoned my pants, but let me finish the plate anyway, right? It's a personality problem that carries over into my technical work when I'm making rugs. But it is good to know when to stop, right? With everything in life. Absolutely beautiful piece, Deborah. Wendy sent some beautiful pieces as well, and a message that said, well, it's this piece, right? But we see it in many stages of its evolution, and I love to see things in the pipeline. Hi, Deanna. First of all, thank you for the tour of the rug show. Well done, everybody. Beautiful show, huge accomplishment, inspiring. Curating, hanging, painting the yellow chair. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot more than I thought. Here's a series of pics of an old Patsy Becker pattern that someone else had begun and I finished. Oh, how cool. I love it when this happens. The original hooker had altered the pattern by adding more flowers around the border. Interesting. I didn't see the original catalog pattern until I was done. There wasn't enough wool to finish the rug. I had to pull out the border background and spread those color strips around, plus adding in similar colors from my stash. Did y'all get that? Because that was super, super smart. Let me hit that again. There wasn't enough wool to finish the rug. I had to pull out the border background, so we're looking at that here, and spread those color strips around, plus Wendy also had to add similar colors from her stash. That is how you do it. Yeah, it's a bummer to pull anything out, but you have to do it in these situations because look how much is done and look how much is left, and there's no more, right? So the best thing you can do is keep the color that's there, pull it out, spread it out, and then fill it in, right? As best you can with similar colors that you have. Absolutely the best thing, the only thing in my mind that you can do when you're picking up someone else's work, right? A sorority sister gave me a 50-year-old tweed skirt from the college days that I used as the background for the yellow flowers. Oh, that is fantastic. And she says, cheers. So let's walk through this together. I hadn't read this, Wendy, when I started. I love this piece even more now. Let me just stretch this open a little bit because as you can see now, I think we all look at orphaned projects and projects that are sentimental because the person didn't get to finish them in their lifetime or something happened and they're not going to finish them. And you know, it's always very touching. And I think as rug hookers, and particularly those of us who are more interested in the history of hooking, we do have this sort of hardwired feeling that we want to rescue all of these rugs. And particularly if you love the way that it looks and it speaks to you, you really do want to take these rugs and finish them up. And what a great thing to be the second or third person to work on the same rugs, right? I mean, isn't that a beautiful thought? So if you are considering a piece that you have sitting around, let's look at this together and let's think about what Wendy had to do to get there in the end. The center is almost done and it looks like either a dark navy or black. So to me, that looks like what I would do with the center here is I would do just what Wendy described. For those very solid parts, I would pull out bits and pieces here and there. And just as I went, I wouldn't pull out 50 strips at once. I would probably pull out 5 here, 5 there, and hook them around the edges and try to get a hit or miss feel going with a second fabric that was as dark as possible, because I think the high impact of this inky, you know, background in the center is really what's going to anchor this piece and allow for the patterned wool from the sorority skirt to really be successful, right? So I would do this. I would do the same technique on the centerpiece, and then let's look at the border, because yeah, there's not a ton done on the border. The flowers are done, so that's nice. They're very pretty, simple Padula type flowers. It's a beautiful piece, right? Beautiful kind of imaginary type flowers with a little bit of a Jacobean twist to it. It really is a lovely rug. Now let's see the progress on it. Wendy, thank you so much for sending this. This is so helpful because now we're seeing the border pieces taken out and spread out. So you see what she's saying here. She sorted out the problem of the border by moving them around so that they were spread out, distributed a little more evenly. Now you're going to have you're going to have an issue with matching colors, right? And you want that. You want that with this rug. If you look at the leaves in the center of this rug, this isn't an absolutely stark, solid piece, right? There's a lot of color change and variation in the different motifs. It's going to be great to put a border on it, particularly with this dark center, that has a lot of interest and a lot of changes. Can't wait to see it finished, right? April, the suspense. It is so pretty, Kirsten. And Andrea says, I like to separate each of my yarn colors into 4. Then I can spread them out around the rug. Any gaps I can pull from other shades, tones from my stash. That's a great idea. So you really have a definite system. You're technical about the way you approach, Andrea. You choose 4 and you probably spread them out the same way each time. And that is your formula and your recipe for success. And that absolutely would work. Without a hitch, that would work every time. Thank you for sharing that. So I just love this idea. I feel like we should talk more on this in the future. So this is we're going to see an image of the original piece. So this is a Patsy Becker, and the piece is called First Time Joy. It was $14 when it came out, and here is the finished piece. Now, isn't that, well, we know that Wendy's great, right? We already know that Wendy's great. This is really phenomenal. This blows me away. It really does. There is something so appealing about that dark center, with a lot of lightness and a lot of color change, like we said, to the flowers, to the petals, to the leaves. But there is a static quality to the border that just makes me crazy in a really good way. It seems like it wants to be a pretty pat piece, like, but no offense, but it seems like a pretty traditional piece. And the way that Wendy's gone with the patterned wool on the border in contrast to the dark wool in the center, and those yellow flowers that are kind of the quintessential, like dainty, old-fashioned, traditional looking flower. A little yellow flower with 2 green petals, right? All the same. That had potential to be a little bit, yawny, right? A little bit snory. But the way that it's handled with these opposite colors, the indigos, the purples, and the static quality of these color changing wools. Gail, good morning. Good to see you. It really, really picks up those yellow flowers. Now imagine this piece with, for example, a brown border. I have to say, I wouldn't be a huge fan. I'd say it's lovely. I can see what's going on here. It's lovely. It's not speaking to me in my heart, but it's lovely. And this is exactly what I think needed to happen with this rug, in my opinion. In terms of color, in terms of hitting the opposite color on the color wheel from these yellows, because they aren't solid yellows, right? It is anything but predictable. It is anything but it is anything but boring. It's such a beautiful piece, and I have rarely seen a piece that is a traditional design uh, done in such an interesting, cool, contemporary way. I am completely blown away. Come here. Come here, honey. You want to come out? Come on. Come. Somebody else is blown away. I think Buttons the dog. I gotta show you before we move on to the next one. Buttons the dog. Wendy is also a huge fan of this rug. He's a huge fan. He's going crazy trying to get near me. Let me put you down. I don't want you to jump, baby. There he goes. There he goes. Absolutely amazing, Wendy. I think there was one more slide for me to show in this series. No. Okay, so that's Brenda's. Let me just double check. Hold on one second. No, that was it. I think I lost, see the glitch. I think I missed putting one of the slides in. Oh, Deanna. I'll try to remember to show it to you on Monday. That makes me angry. Yeah, that makes me angry. Hold on one second while talk amongst yourselves, right? Hold on one second. Let me see if I can just pull it up here and maybe show it to you because it was super, super cool and helpful. I just want to show you what the Patsy Becker pattern looked like. Let me see if I can pull it up because I might not remember. Hang on. Yep, we're going to do it. Let's see if it works. Yeah, okay, here it is. So it's called First Time Joy, and the pattern is 22 by 31 and a half. And let me see if I can, there we go. Da 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 da. So you can see what Wendy said. Until she saw this pattern, she didn't realize that the person had put so many more yellow flowers into it. Isn't that interesting? What a great kind of adventure to go on when you're working on a project like this and you are committed to finishing the piece off and you think you've got all the details of it and you think you got the cat by the tail and all that, and then suddenly you find the original, I want to look at it one more time. You find the original piece and you realize that it's very different. That's a huge change, right? Populating the border with all these yellow flowers is a huge change. Absolutely beautiful. I just love it. Oh, thanks, April. Buttons is cute. He's a hot mess right now. Oh, Goretti, you are so welcome. And your husband is stunned and happy. Your husband should be super stunned. I mean, that was just a crazy, crazy first piece. I mean, that is, Mike, well done. That is really, like, I'm going to say, I think that's the best first piece I've ever seen. I can't think of anything that is that over the top. Oh, Wendy says the catalog picture listed this as a beginner pattern. Yeah, I mean, but you know what? That sounds nutty, that being a beginner pattern, but at the same time, I would say that, like, right through the 80s into the 90s, I think most rug hookers started their rug hooking lives with a teacher. And nothing wrong with that. And we do less of that now, I think, because there's YouTube and there's other ways that we can learn. But I think most people did. So I think if you had a teacher standing over you for X amount of days or weeks, it would be kind of a rinse and repeat. Like, here's how you do the flower, here's how you box it out, work on the central motif and rinse and repeat on your own at home. I think it'd be more manageable. I can see it as a beginner pattern, but if you haven't had sort of any training and you're just watching YouTube videos, it might be like, whoa, this is a lot in a large piece to start out with. But yeah, interesting that it would be a beginner piece. Now, this is a piece that Brenda sent in. This is such a great piece. I always struggle with this word, conch, right? The seashell is conch. Is it conch? It's, oh, now I don't know. Now I said it both ways. Conch, I think it's conch. Hooked, in, sorry. in different fibers, quillies, and beading. So let's look at all. This really is beautiful. Conch shell, isn't that correct? Gosh, I second guess myself with everything in life. Believe me, it's not just rugs, it's absolutely everything. Now, this is a beautiful silhouette. You know what I love about this? I love a lot of things about this piece, and we're going to talk about them in just a second. But one of the things I really love about this piece is that with a silhouette shape of a seashell like this, I would expect to see like a nautilus, like a chambered nautilus, right? And it's not exactly, it operates more like a sampler. We do have a swirl that is like evocative of a nautilus, but there's so much else going on in this piece. Let me stretch it out a little bit. The jewel tones are fantastic, especially the metallics. Yeah, they are. So let me see. Let me bring it to you a little bit larger because we're also seeing some Prati. Are we seeing Prati? No, we're just seeing some big fat loops. Nope, we are not seeing Prati. So yeah, Juliet, I can see you loving this piece of Brenda's. It really is a lot of different material. I mean, it really is stunning. And do you see the beads on the top left? And do you see the embedded quilly in the corners, right? I mean, that really is something. It looks like a much lighter weight fabric like silk dupioni or a silk type ribbon that are making those big fat kind of parachute loops that are so lovely and working great in contrast to the very sort of shaggy, sort of boucle, right? The very tight curled wool or yarn. You hardly ever see this fiber anymore. I know it as boucle, Boucle. I don't know if it has a different name in different places, but you can see there are quillies here and there are beads sewn in, and the metallic yarn or fiber is really stunning. That great graphic swirl of purple, all those different shades of purple, heavy contrast with black, pulling from that black border, pulling your eye right to the center where we see that black swirl. Super smart. Okay, Brenda says that's sari on the corners. Absolutely. Let me show the bottom corners too. That makes perfect sense. Absolutely beautiful, lightweight material that balloons right up for you while you're pulling it down into a loop. Really beautiful. I like the turquoise blue going out to the border. I like the outline around the blue. That's a really interesting material. What is that? Is that done with hooking or is that done with a needle? Because it seems like it has such a directional pull to it. Really lovely. Juliet says, I need to learn to spin boucle yarns for my rugs. I think you're going to love them because look at this. This texture is just crazy. Oh, Paula, we'll see you soon. There'll be lots more episodes. Have a great weekend. And Juliet says, it's really time consuming to hand spin it, but I love the look. I do too. It has very high impact. Really rich colors. Yeah, Wendy, that's so true. Really jewel type colors, right? I mean, I can name a bunch of jewels that I think of when I look at these colors. They're so cool. Beautiful piece, Brenda. It's an absolutely beautiful piece. You are killing it. I just love the idea of doing a simple motif like that and breaking it up like that with different techniques, different materials, so much interest. Danny, you were working on your emojis. These are great. You wrote, I just saw that you'll be doing a gallery night tonight. I finished the Impatient rug. Now, this is the one you started that we looked at the last gallery night. Because I remember I was sitting in my mom's bed. I was there again. And we were talking about looking at the watch. And I think I remember that you were making these for a friend of yours who's a teacher. Is that right? And you said, I'm going to make like a bunch of different emojis because they're helpful to start conversations on talking about emotions, right? And this makes perfect sense. So you said I finished the Impatient rug with the same blue that's in the eyes. So you mean finished on the border because you were saying, give me some ideas for some borders. And we talked about a bunch of different borders. I love what you did more than anything that we came up with. You carried that blue out to the border. That is the color that needed to be on the border. That is a great contrast to the kind of salmon coral color in the center. I love the limited color palette in this piece. I love the black outlining. I'm curious how you're feeling about your shading because I'm not remembering off the top of my head the face, but I remember we looked at the way that things are shaded. I remember thinking, I don't think you can do too much with shading this, but I have to say, I'm looking at it right now and I'm thinking, this is perfect. I can't I can't picture before and after what you did, but this is perfect. What you did worked great, right? This is perfect. I absolutely love it. You worked on burlap, you were close to the corner, you managed to tie it back, wrap it around. This is t-shirt material, is that right? I absolutely love it. You said I'm currently working on the orange. Okay, so wait a minute. It went a lot. Okay, wait a minute. Let me go back. The same blue that's in the eyes, smart, is around the finish of the rug. I also completed the second rug, which is frustrated. Okay, so let's look at the second rug. Impatient is fabulous. Here comes frustrated. Oh, yeah, I know that face. Oh, yeah, that resonates. So, April says, Danny, the border came out great. The color choice is really good. Perfection. Frustrated is fantastic. Um, and you said it went a lot quicker the second time since I messed around on the first one. Yeah, I mean, of course you did. Of course you did. You're just going to bang these out like bada bada bang because now you've got the hang of it, right? You have got such a good formula going. I'm really excited about your work. I really am. I'm really excited. You're working in like the really old time tradition, right? You are using materials that you find. You are working on burlap. You are not being over fussy, and that is a compliment, right? Because I'm not a huge fan of over fussy for myself, for my taste. I love the way that you are just putting your foot down on the pedal and you are pumping out some insanely good graphic work. I love the colors, right? Unexpected. I love the contrast and frustrated between the colors of the face. Again, limited color palette. So this to me feels like your thing, and I love that. You should have a thing, right? You should have a thing. And either you have a thing and you know you have a thing, or this abstract talk, crazy talk here, or you have a thing and you don't realize that you do, but you are leaning into it. And I love the contrast between the background. I'm curious to know what the background material is, and frustrated as a character. And you said over fussy is how I get this face. Haha. Yeah. Yeah. Don't do it to yourself because the way that you're working very instinctively and organically. And I can just see your hand moving, hooking this up and making decisions as you go. And your work really says to me confident. And that's the toughest thing about, I think, everything, right? I was going to say rug hooking. That's the toughest thing about everything. Um, I'm not that confident. I am always second guessing myself. Your work makes me feel like you are confident. And I think that's it's exuding decision making, right? Making good, fast decisions that are successful because you've got good instincts. You've got good color sense. You've got every bone in your body is artistic. So this is coming out great. I love frustrated. And you said I have a better idea of where things go on the face. I'm currently working on the orange one too. So let's look at the orange one next. I absolutely love frustrated. Let's look at bored. So you're working on board right now. You're following the same formula. Again, we all appreciate you showing us stages of work. Incredibly, I'm going over today because I shot my mouth off so much, but we're doing it. I love this one too. This looks like a difficult material to hook with. So my hat is off to you because I often hook with difficult materials and it is what it is. You can trim later or not, right? Board is coming out great, and I love that you are continuing to use limited color palettes. Oh, the green is an old folding chair bag with some kind of transparent purple fabric. Fantastic. I love that. How about this one, Danny? What's going on with the materials in this? Where did you find these materials? I just love this. This is how you do it. This is how this craft is done. You have got the formula now. You are moving at top speed. I have no feedback for you other than keep going. This formula is working. I know you want to do a whole bunch of emoji faces. You should. I'm sure they're going to be useful, appreciated, and loved by lots of kids and your friend, the teacher, right? We're loving them here. So make sure that you just keep us posted and let us know how it goes, what the future ones are, because I would like to see all of them. I feel like these should be collected and exhibited somewhere because these are a great example of the most, and again, I'm going to say basic, right? Because you're using found materials. This is how it was originally done. And one of my laments about the craft is we've gone very far away from this. And when I look at work like this, I get that zap of electricity that reminds me what this craft was and how it started. I'm choking myself up. I love seeing pieces worked in this way. It brings me right back to what I imagined the beginning was, and I absolutely love everything that I'm seeing. And Danny, you said, I don't know what the material is, but I found many of them from my old job at the Children's Museum that were going to be thrown out. Perfect. Grab them all. You're going to use them sooner or later, right? Hoard, organize, grab everything, right? Now, Ryan, you know I had to use something of yours. What is going on with the zebras? Are you super frustrated and all done for the time being? You're taking a bit of a break? Danny, you're super welcome. I'm super sincere. I love them. So Ryan, you needed a break from oh my God, the zebras, right? Like the optical illusion of the dancing zebras, the herd. So you started working on Air Balloon, which is another a beautiful piece, much smaller for you, 24 by 30, much smaller for you. In this photo, it was day 2 of Air Balloon, and you've done a lot more since. So let's look at what you've done since the Air Balloon. We are wrapping up. I've only got a couple of minutes left in this episode. Fantastic. You're done. You're done. Is it tail cutting time? I'm not sure if Ryan's still on. It might be tail cutting time. I really like this piece. It's so graphic. It's so happy. Cheerful colors, right? This really strikes me as a late 1970s, early 1980s piece, design-wise. I like the motion of the birds in the sky, too, the 3 birds. I like the way the clouds are cut away, silhouette style, but using the blue instead of like a darker color to outline. Great ideas in this piece. Great use of color. Great shape. It's a super fun piece. Absolutely love it. What a huge contrast to the zebras. So yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. I hope it was fun to work and beautiful. Veronica, you sent a great message. I'm just making sure I didn't forget anything. Hi, Deanna. My name is Veronica. I'm in Southern California. I know, Veronica. I remember. I purchased a Circle of Flowers kit from Green Mountain Hook Drugs. Stephanie Allen Krause drew the pattern and put the kit together. She says the design is from her family, and it was done by using her great-grandmother's stamping blocks. Interesting. These are beautiful. This looks to me like a Baltimore album quilts block, because it looks like the circle of flowers, the ring of flowers, right? All the sort of friendship colors mixed in. It could be based on an applique quilt block. It could be based on same thing, Baltimore album quilt block. I love that it was a family pattern for her. It's absolutely beautiful. You are doing a killer job. This is a tough pattern because there's a lot going on, right? It seems like, oh, it's a ring of flowers. It's manageable. It's tough. This looks tough to me. You did a lot of things so well here. I love the color planning with this. It's super colorful. I like how you have the dark kind of the vine color. I don't know if it's black or a dark value of another color, really anchoring the piece. And then that dark green, like that bottle green, is really, really smart because it goes well with the other dark color, but it's different, right? And it really stands out. And then instead of using like one color or 2 colors for the flowers, you used, it looks like 3 or 4 colors. Really smart because it makes our eye travel around, try to play the memory game and match stuff up. Okay, Deborah, yours was mostly number 4 cut. I absolutely love it. This for me is a tough piece because it's absolutely lovely, but that's because Veronica did a great job. I would struggle with this because imagine putting in all of that filigree detail and then you have to address the background. And look what Veronica did with this piece. She's got strong directional hooking happening in top to bottom and side to side. I absolutely love that. I love that. I think that's a great way to solve that problem. I love that it's not a problem, right? It's a lot of background that is completely blank against a motif that is very busy and filigree. And you did the perfect thing. You hooked the motif perfectly of the flowers. You chose colors that made sense but also popped. You chose a variety of colors so that it would remain an exciting piece. And then you hooked the background instead of just straight up, straight down, or sort of concentric echoes. You still you did directional hooking, which is the opposite of the motif itself, right? A circle with tons of things coming off of it. You did something very rigid and directional in the background, and it really is a treat for our eyes to wander north, south, east, west, and all around. It works in contrast to that central motif, and it really is effective and really beautiful. Great job. Chrissy, I also love the white background. Really pops it. I hardly ever think to do a white background, and it really, really is so effective. It really is. I need to think more about light and white backgrounds, especially when I see this piece. It is super, super lovely. Great job, Veronica. Absolutely beautiful. Happy birthday, Kirsten. Not today, but this past, in the last, 3 days, Kirsten and Jane had birthdays. So this is Kirsten Gay. She is the host of the Tuesday Hook-Ins. I just wanted to make a very public announcement. I'm sorry if that surprised you. Is that Bebop? I always ask which one is Bebop. I think this must be Bebop in the picture, the kitty. So Kirsten had a birthday, and the next day was Jane's birthday. And the reason I say this is because these are the two people who help me so much with this brand and are online constantly with the brand, because I am rarely on our Facebook group, right? Busyness and all that. These are two people who do so much for the Ribbon Candy Hooking brand and for our Facebook group, Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, and who really set the tone within the group as moderators of being friendly, helpful, approachable, kind, forthcoming, right? They are setting the tone for the brand. So these are two friends who I love so much, so much. And I am so grateful for every day. So happy birthday to Kirsten. Who, again, I'll just remind you, all the Tuesday hook-ins, right, from 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 1 p.m., hosted by Kirsten. You couldn't find a better person, a more friendly person, a more knowledgeable person to get you started or to keep you company on Tuesdays during the hook-ins. Happy birthday also to Jane Davies in Wales, who does a ton of the behind-the-scenes stuff for me. She put most of this gallery night together for me, as she always does, right? She pulls all of your emails out of, she's here with her grandchildren. She pulls all of your emails out of the box, the Ribbon Candy Hooking box, whether they are for books, projects, gallery night, questions, orders. She organizes things for me. She's constantly making documents for me. She's making it possible for me to continue running 3 live shows a week, right? During a time where I finished one book, had started a second book. I'm trying to get orders out. I'm trying to get the Patreon stuff going. I'm trying to be a mother to 2 kids who are still young. Without the help of these 2 women, I would not be able to be with you as much as I am. It would be physically impossible, like in terms of time, right? Unless Back to the Future stuff really is possible. I would never. So huge thank you and happy birthday to both of you, because having those 2 birthdays back to back, I thought I have got to give a huge shout out on our website page and also tonight on Gallery Night, because I don't thank you often enough. And I want you all to know, who watch and tune in to the bitter end, that these shows would not be possible without these 2 friends. So huge thank you. Happy birthday to both. And listen, I'm just thinking about next week, because I'm not going to be around on Monday. I'm going to be in Boston on Monday. So why don't we say, we're still looking at the fairy tale book. So why don't we do for this coming week, I'll remind you during the week, I won't run a Monday show. Tuesday will be Hook in Time with Kirsten between 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 1. So be looking out for the details of that on our Facebook page, or maybe you are directly in touch with Kirsten and you have the info already. On Wednesday, I will be live with you, and we'll be looking at the fairy tale book again. And that will be at noon Eastern Standard Time. And then why don't we say, I'll come to you on Thursday, and we'll do one of these unusual, sort of irregular nights, where I come to you, why don't we say at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's usually our Thursday time. I'll come to you at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then I will look forward to running a Friday show as well. So we'll see how that all plays out. I have another busy week ahead. But I think it should. I think I should be fine for that. It should work fine that way. So next thing that's happening within our group is the Hook It on Tuesday, and then I will be with you on Wednesday to continue looking at fairy tale books. Please look at the classes that are on Ribbon Candy Hooking, and look again tomorrow morning because I'm putting a couple products out, including 2 more classes for next month for May. The color planning class, and which I have not run before, and the design like the fairy tale storybook part 2. Right, that was super popular class. So, all right. And Kirsten saying the Tuesday hook-ins like a knitting circle welcomes one and all. Look for a post in Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club with the link. So we will both see you next week. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. Um, yeah, and send any messages you have to me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. Think about those Design Light classes, whether you're working on something for the Design Light classes that you could send me for the book. It is not a huge pressing rush because I'm still working on the book. And we'll talk more about Sartor Village and the dates that I will be there for 2023, right? And to do the book signing and to do the little trunk thing. And we've got a lot to talk about. So we will catch up again on Wednesday. Good night to you. Have a happy weekend. Hopefully it's beautiful weather and we get blasted with sunlight. Everything's great.